You know, Vice President Joe Biden. You know the nice thing? You don't need a punchline.
There were those who will rail against politicians, claiming the biggest problem with them is lack of transparency, inability to tell the truth, maybe even hiding how much money they've made or how many indiscretions they keep hiding. There is something much more evident, though, leading Americans to groan and rightly complain about these lawmakers, and that's every time they open their mouth. We will allow the political animal to speak to this then. Michael Brown's the former director of FEMA, radio talker along the Rockies on KHOW 630 in Denver, Colorado. Also senior political contributor at Forbes, co-host of the Daily Wrap weekday evenings here on Newsmax, Rick Ungar. Gentlemen, I'm going to begin first of all on this political animal side, if you will, with Mr. Brown, who has certainly had a lot of time to deal with politicians. Mike, Ted Cruz joking about Joe Biden after his son dies. The president saying, I'm the closest thing to a Jew that has ever sat in the Oval Office. Mike Huckabee supporting the Duggars on Facebook. And Rick Santorum telling the Pope, leave science to the scientists. Michael, what will it take us to get to these politicians and say, shut up?
It's a carnival, isn't it? I don't think we're ever going to get them to shut up. But I think, let's work through them one by one. I think Ted Cruz did exactly the right thing. He came back and he apologized profusely for doing it. It was bad timing, good for him. Barack Obama being a Jew, I just played a soundbite yesterday on my show, an Israeli reporter talking to the president saying, no matter what you do in Iran, the first bomb that hits is going to hit Tel Aviv, not hit Washington. And Mike Huckabee, well, I've known Mike since he was the governor, and I just don't think he can help himself. We might as well just sit back and roll with this and laugh at it and recognize them for what they are. People often forget these politicians are just human beings, and human beings say and do stupid things all the time.
Now, we're right about one thing here. Chad Livengood, the Capitol reporter for the Detroit News, was asking Senator Cruz about the timing of the joke, and he basically said, why'd you tell a joke about the vice president tonight? The Texas senator turned and basically just walked away. He didn't want anything to do with it at that point. But when we get down to this, Rick, these are politicians, these are guys like Ted Cruz who have basically the same script over and over again every single night. Yeah, they give us something off the cuff every now and then, but shouldn't they at least have the common sense to know not to say some things that can be checked, double-checked, and really make them look bad and be insulting to the voters? That seems to be just logical.
You would hope so. And I got to tell you, in the case of Senator Cruz, I don't want to politicize it. So I'm just going to say that if he were my son, I'd be truly ashamed of him. Now, as for President Obama's comment, I got to tell you, I can vouch for him because I was at his bar mitzvah.
The only question we have then is, look, what did you give him for bar mitzvah? Because that's how you are measured.
Well, I actually gave him a savings bond, knowing how much you would appreciate and value, and of course, a fountain pen. Now, I do have to ask you guys, do you know what president really was the closest to being Jewish?
Okay, Mike, I'm going to throw that to you, Michael. Any idea?
Man, my mind is reeling, and I can't think of any.
I can think of somebody far back in history somewhere.
This is absolutely true.
Go ahead. Far back in history. I remember James Madison.
Right. James Madison could read and write Hebrew.
And that would be as close as you could possibly get. Although the president does say that he said it because he was trying to point out that he does not hate Israel, as many people think. Still, have a little common sense here, gentlemen. And I do want to point out, Ted Cruz did apologize on his Facebook page. He said, I got it wrong. I really apologize. So, okay, good. He did the right thing, but you didn't have to say it in the first place, Ted. Let's remember that.
Never have been something he had to apologize for.
Now, wait a minute now. Hold on a sec. Hold on one sec, Mike. Now, Rick, you said he didn't have to apologize for that?
No, I'm saying it should never have been something that even called for an apology. It's just so far out of bounds. And look, I mean, I don't think he didn't set out to offend the vice president. I get that. But I don't get how it doesn't come into your mind what's going on with this person's life at this moment. And I got to tell you, Ed did reference this. If you look at the video of when the Detroit Free Press reporter asked him the question, before he turned away, he gave him this look like, oh, you're asking me a gotcha question. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what's going through this man's head?
Most people would say, hopefully something thoughtful would be doing that at that point. 40 seconds to you, Mike. I know you had something you wanted to throw in here.
Well, I think what drives me nuts is all of these politicians, elected or running for office, have numerous staff around them. And I'm always befuddled by the fact that the staff doesn't get in their heads and say, look, I've been listening to you do this stump speech for, 3 weeks now. chill out in terms of Biden because his son just died.
Yeah.
That's poor staffing, and it
Very
just
good
drives
point.
me nuts.
Two things I'll say here before we take a break is, number one, having interviewed a lot of these politicians, I will tell you that, and I think we've all seen this before, you can interview them, and then the next day you can see them do an interview with somebody else, and the answers will be exactly the same,
Yes.
verb for verb, because they have it basically memorized. The second thing is, to your point, Mike, have you ever seen Veep on HBO?
Oh, yes.
Because
Yes.
if there's
Never
any,
miss it.
I mean, that's exactly what it's like, and you gotta get an idea that that's what it's really like sometimes in the White House when all the aides are hanging around. All right, gentlemen, both of you, hang on for a
We're
couple
in
of
big
minutes
trouble.
here. We are in huge trouble here. We're gonna come back with more of the political animals here. But coming up next, Boston cops and the feds get a leg up on the extremists by doing the right thing after an attack. It's coming up next, right here on the Hardline. Now that we have left behind politicians who exercise little or no common sense when the lips move, back to those who make complete sense every time they speak. Michael Brown's former director of FEMA, radio talker at KHOW 630 in Denver, Colorado, and senior political contributor at Forbes, co-host of the Daily Wrap right here on Newsmax, Rick Ungar. All right, Rick, I'm going to start with you here. Let's see. Rick Perry says he's in. Jeb Bush says he will eventually be in. Are we really just still at that point, though, where we're waiting? Jeb, just get in, because then we'll start to really get some separation here.
Well, I hope so. I got to say, he is kind of pushing the borders here of what I think you can get away with. I understand why he's not announcing he wants to be able to stay as close to his super PAC as he can for as long as he can, but I think he's kind of maxed it out. He's pushed it about as far as it can go. So I'm not surprised he's finally going to get there and make the announcement. Will there be separation? You know, I would have told you a few months ago that I would have said yes, because I really have been under the opinion that it was Jeb Bush's nomination. I'm not so sure anymore. He has not been very good out on the campaign trail. So he may have opened the door for some other people, I think.
All right, Michael, then I'm going to throw it to you. If indeed that door is open, whom will step through?
Well, I think there are quite a few, and I've got to agree with Rick on this one. I think Jeb has, because I've known Jeb for 10, 15 years now, and I think Jeb has in his mind that he really can get this. But I also think that he's smart enough to know that there's a lot of other people out there. The world has changed since he first wanted to be president at the end of his first term as governor. And so I think he's beginning to wonder whether he can do this or not. And the longer he waits, the Scott Walkers and the Ted Cruzes and the Rand Pauls, Marco Rubio, I've seen numbers where down in Florida, Rubio's raising some good money. I think Jeb knows he's got a fight on his hands. Now, he's probably going to go ahead and jump in. He's got the bug. I don't think he can resist not jumping in. But I'm with Rick. I don't think that this is presumptively Jeb's, and I think that's starting to eat at him.
I am going to agree with both of you right there. I think we still have a long way to go, and it is no sure thing for Jeb Bush. Something interesting here, this attack that happened in Boston in the last couple of days where the FBI took down a guy that they've been following for quite some time. In Oakland, California, a guy who said he is his brother immediately tweets out, they shot him in the back. He was on the phone with our father. He said, don't shoot, I can't breathe is what he said. You know something, Michael? We've seen people try and get ahead of this game, but you've dealt with emergencies before in the past. I think what the Boston police did was exactly right. They called in the community leaders. They immediately showed them the videotape, and they're eventually going to make it public. They have to put a stop to a lot of this social media flack and the fluff that gets out there.
Amen and amen. Not only did they do things right, the FBI did things right. They followed the law. They operated within the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment. And in addition to that, they handled the PR aspect of this correctly. We live in a new world now where no matter what a cop does, people are going to jump in and immediately say they were wrong. Cops are going to have, police departments are going to have to learn to be aggressive, learn to use social media, and stay on top of this. We've got to change that paradigm.
Rick, I think there's that great word in there. Aggressive is what they've got to be. You bring in the community leaders, you shut this down right away, because there's already been some foreign governments who've said, oh, look at the tweets. Americans are shooting Muslims again on the streets. Got it right.
I'm completely with you guys on this. I thought they were absolutely brilliant up there. I really did. When they made the announcement, they said, first we're going to show it to the family, then we're going to show it to the leaders, the civil rights leaders, the community leaders. I'm just going, this is the way police departments need to behave. I think we all knew that the brother was saying things that were ridiculous. No better way to shut it down than to do it precisely as the Boston police did.
1 minute left, and here we go. An interview on Fox News Channel. Jim Bob Duggar said that he and his wife felt some responsibility for their son's actions. Here's the soundbite.
I think as parents, you feel like a failure when one of your kids does something wrong. You feel like if I had done more training or maybe something else that this wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. But the truth is that kids will make their own choices and they will make their own decisions even though you've taught them what's right and wrong.
30 seconds to you on this one, Michael. I'll tell you, it looks like the Duggars are just looking to be martyrs, and they're using TV to do it.
Amen. I think, look, there's some truth in what they said. Kids will make their own choices. But in this day and age, I got to tell you, that television camera is like a bug light, and they're using that bug light, flying right into it, trying to cover their own rear ends. That's exactly what's going on here.
What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, you guys are really right on the right path. I was really annoyed by a lot of what I saw in that interview last night. Look, the kid made a mistake. If you seek help and you get it fixed, you know, I'm going to cut the kid a break. Things go wrong. But you know what? It was so self-serving. And when they said that they're treated more difficultly because they're Christians, I wanted to be sick. We live in a Christian country, folks. Come on. It was ridiculous. And I'm going to quickly say one more thing about this young man. The fact that he grew up to be the executive director of an organization that spends its time judging everybody else just made it all the more offensive.
I got to tell you, we're all right on the dime on this one here, and stop trying to think that they're just going after you because of your religion. You put yourself on TV, then guess what? You got to pay for it. There you go. Rick Ungar, weeknight 7 p.m. Eastern on the Daily Wrap here on Newsmax. Michael Brown, KHOW 630 in Denver, Colorado. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Be good. See you again next time, and the fastest 60 minutes in news continues.